He was a
What's the
billionaire
problem?
with
Can you
everything.
fix it?
She was a poor
Battery connection
mechanic
just
in a
needs tightening.
wheelchair with nothing.
Yeah,
Their
use
love
this
was
wrench.
never supposed to work.
Got it.
But
That
when
should
the
do it.
paths crossed,
Perfect.
they moved
Let's get
mountains. This story will show you the true power of love in the face of the unthinkable. Click the like button as we proceed. The road stretched endlessly, a dry, stubborn ribbon of earth that refused to be tamed. Each passing vehicle stirred up clouds of red dust that hung in the air long after the engines had faded into the distance. It clung to everything: skin, clothes, tools, settling like a constant reminder of the life Lila lived. Lila adjusted herself slightly in her wheelchair. The metal frame let out a soft creak beneath her. She did not notice it anymore. The sound had become as familiar to her as her own breathing. What she did notice was the heat. The sun burned high above, relentless and unforgiving, pressing down on her shoulders like a weight. Sweat gathered at her temples, sliding slowly down her face. But she did not stop. She could not afford to. Spread neatly before her was a worn piece of cloth, once bright blue, but now faded and stained with oil and time. On it lay her tools, spanners, screwdrivers, pliers, each carefully arranged, each carrying its own story. To anyone else, they were just tools. To Lila, they were survival. A battered motorcycle sat in front of her, its engine partially dismantled. The owner, a young man no older than 20, stood nearby, watching her with a mix of impatience and curiosity. "You sure you can fix it?" he asked, skepticism thick in his voice. Lila did not look up. Her hands moved steadily, confidently, tightening a bolt with practiced ease. "If I couldn't," she replied calmly, "I wouldn't be here." The young man shifted uncomfortably. It was not the first time she had heard that question. It would not be the last. People always doubted her, not because she lacked skill, but because of what they saw, or rather, what they thought they saw. A woman in a wheelchair on the side of a dusty road. To them, she was a contradiction. To herself, she was proof. Proof that life could break you and still fail to defeat you. Lila had not always lived this life. There was a time when she ran, when her legs carried her freely through open fields, when laughter came easily, when the world had not yet shown her its cruelty. But that was before the accident, before the whispers, before the pitying looks that followed her everywhere like a shadow she could never escape. She remembered the day everything changed, the screech of tires, the sharp, violent impact, the silence that followed, and then darkness. When she woke up in the hospital, the first thing she noticed was the stillness. Her body felt wrong, heavy, unresponsive. She tried to move her legs. They did not move. Panic rose in her chest, fast and suffocating. "Doctor," she had whispered, her voice trembling, "why can't I feel my legs?" The doctor's expression had said everything before his words did. "I'm sorry." 2 words, simple, devastating. Her world had ended in that moment, or so she thought. The young man's voice pulled her back to the present. "Is it done yet?" Lila blinked, refocusing. "Almost," she said. She tightened the final bolt, wiped her hands on a rag, and gave a small nod. "Try it." The young man climbed onto the motorcycle, turning the ignition. For a brief second, nothing happened. Then the engine roared to life, smooth, steady, alive. His face lit up instantly. "Ah, it's working." Lila allowed herself a small smile. "Of course it is." He reached into his pocket, pulling out some crumpled notes, and handed them to her. She counted quickly, then handed some back. "That's too much." The young man frowned. "But I charge for the work I do," she said firmly, "not for what you think I need." There was no anger in her voice, just quiet dignity. The young man hesitated, then slowly nodded, taking the extra money back. "Thank you," he said, this time with genuine respect. Lila gave a slight nod. "Drive safe." He rode off, leaving behind a trail of dust that briefly swallowed the world before settling again. Silence returned. Lila leaned back slightly, exhaling. Another job done. Another day survived. Business was unpredictable. Some days she worked from morning till night, her hands never still. Other days stretched long and empty, filled with waiting. Waiting for the next customer, waiting for the next opportunity, waiting for life to move forward. She glanced down the road, squinting slightly against the sun. Nothing. Just the endless stretch of red earth and the occasional distant movement. She reached for her water bottle, taking a small sip. It was warm. Everything was warm. Even the air felt heavy. Still, she stayed, because leaving meant missing a chance, and chances were rare. A low, unfamiliar sound broke through the quiet. Lila's head lifted instantly. Her ears had become trained over the years, able to recognize the subtle language of engines. This one was struggling. She narrowed her eyes, focusing on the road ahead. A sleek black SUV appeared in the distance, moving slowly, unevenly. Even from afar, she could tell something was wrong. The engine sputtered, coughed, then jerked forward again. Lila straightened slightly in her chair. "Come on," she murmured under her breath. The vehicle drew closer, the problem becoming more obvious with each passing second. Then finally it stopped, just a few meters away from her. Silence followed, thick, heavy, the kind of silence that comes after something gives up. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Lila's eyes studied him carefully. He was tall, well-built, dressed in a crisp, expensive suit that did not belong on a road like this. His shoes alone probably cost more than everything she owned. He looked around, clearly out of place. Frustration flickered across his face as he pulled out his phone, checking for signal. Nothing. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Then his eyes landed on her. Lila did not look away. She was used to this moment, that first look, the pause, the surprise. Sometimes curiosity, sometimes doubt, sometimes outright dismissal. This time it was shock. His gaze lingered on her wheelchair, then moved to her tools, then back to her face. Lila tilted her head slightly. "Engine problem?" she asked. Her voice was calm, neutral, unbothered. The man hesitated. For a brief moment it seemed like he might say something else, something dismissive, but instead he nodded. "Yes." Lila gestured toward the car with a small movement of her hand, opened the bonnet. He blinked, as if surprised by the authority in her tone, but he obeyed. As the hood lifted, Lila wheeled herself closer, her movements smooth and practiced. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes scanning the engine. Her entire demeanor changed, focused, sharp. Gone was the woman people pitied. In her place stood someone listening, observing, understanding. The man watched her closely. His earlier doubts slowly began to fade, replaced by something else, something he did not quite understand yet. Lila did not notice, or perhaps she did, and simply did not care. After a moment, she spoke. "You've been driving it like this for a while." It was not a question. The man frowned. "Yes." "How did you?" She pointed at a section of the engine. "This did not just happen today." He stared at her, impressed. "You can fix it?" he asked. Lila finally looked up at him, one eyebrow slightly raised. "If I couldn't," she said, echoing her earlier words, "I wouldn't be here." Something shifted in that moment, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, powerfully. The man, Zane, though she did not yet know his name, felt it. For the first time, he was not thinking about his broken car. He was thinking about her. And Lila? She simply reached for her tools, because for her, this was just another job. She had no idea that this moment, this dusty roadside encounter, was about to change her life forever. The engine ticked faintly as heat rose from beneath the hood, carrying with it the sharp scent of oil and metal. Zane stood still, one hand resting on the edge of the open bonnet, his mind caught somewhere between disbelief and curiosity. He had seen many things in his life. Boardrooms filled with powerful men, multimillionaire deals sealed with handshakes, luxury cars lined up like trophies in his father's mansion. But this was different because nothing in his world had prepared him for her. Lila leaned forward slightly in her wheelchair, her brows drawn together in concentration. The sun caught the fine beads of sweat on her forehead, but she did not wipe them away this time. She did not seem to notice anything except the engine. Her fingers moved with quiet precision, touching, testing, adjusting. It was not rushed. It was not careless. It was deliberate. Zane found himself watching her hands. There was something oddly captivating about the way she worked. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just confidence. "Pass me that spanner," she said suddenly, without looking up. Zane blinked. "Sorry." She tilted her head slightly toward her tool cloth, the 12mm spanner, beside the screwdriver. Her tone was not rude, but it was not polite either. It was direct. Used to being obeyed. For a brief second, Zane almost smiled. No one spoke to him like that. Not employees, not strangers, not even his friends. But here she was treating him like an assistant. And strangely, he did not mind. He reached down, picked up the tool, and handed it to her. "Thank you," she said, still focused on the engine. No glance. No extra acknowledgement. Just work. Zane slipped his hands into his pockets, studying her more closely now. Who was she? How did she learn this? Why was she here instead of somewhere better? Questions crowded his mind, but none of them seemed appropriate to ask. Instead he said, "What exactly is wrong with it?" Lila tightened something, then paused. "Fuel delivery issue," she replied. He frowned slightly. "Meaning?" She exhaled softly, as though deciding whether to explain. Then she spoke. "Your engine is not getting enough fuel to function properly. Something is blocking or limiting the flow." She tapped a component lightly. "Here." Zane leaned in slightly. You can tell just by looking? Lila finally glanced up at him. Not impressed, not amused, just steady. Not just looking, she said, listening. That answer lingered, listening, as if the engine had a voice and she understood its language. There was a silence that followed, but it was not awkward, it was thoughtful. Zane found himself shifting his weight slightly, his gaze drifting briefly down the empty road before returning to her. I did not expect, he began, then stopped. Lila did not ask him to finish. She already knew. I know, she said simply. Her voice held no bitterness, no irritation, just acceptance. You did not expect someone like me to fix your car. Zane felt a flicker of discomfort. That is not what I meant. Lila gave a small, almost invisible shrug. It usually is. Her hands continued moving as she spoke, effortless, unbothered, as if she had had this conversation 100 times before and long stopped caring about the outcome. Zane opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. Because the truth was, she was not wrong. He had not expected it. But not because she was incapable, because the world had taught him certain expectations, and she did not fit into any of them. Yet here she was, breaking them without even trying. A sharp metallic click broke the silence. Lila leaned back slightly, inspecting her work. Try it now, she said. Zane hesitated. That fast? Lila raised an eyebrow. Do you want it fixed or not? He let out a quiet breath, walking around to the driver's seat. As he sat down, something felt different. He could not explain it. It was just a car, just an engine, but suddenly it felt like more. He turned the key. For a split second, nothing. Then the engine roared to life. Smooth, steady, perfect. Zane's eyes widened slightly. He revved it gently. No struggle, no hesitation. It was as if the car had never broken down at all. He stepped out slowly, closing the door behind him. Lila was already cleaning her hands with a rag. You are good, he said. It was not a compliment thrown carelessly. It was genuine. Lila did not smile, but something softened in her expression. I know, she replied. And for the first time Zane laughed, not loudly, but enough to surprise himself. He reached into his wallet, pulling out a thick bundle of cash. He did not count it. He did not think about it. He simply extended it toward her. Take it. Lila looked at the money, then at him, then back at the money. She took it calmly, counting quickly with practiced fingers. Then she separated a portion and handed the rest back. That is too much, Zane frowned. It is fine. Lila shook her head. No, her tone was firmer now. I charge for the work I do, not for your generosity. There was no arrogance in her voice, just principle. Zane studied her for a moment, then slowly he took the money back. That was new, very new. People did not refuse his money, they did not reduce it. If anything, they asked for more. But her, she set her value and stood by it. What is your name? He asked. Lila hesitated for a brief second, then Lila. He nodded. I am Zane. She did not react. No widened eyes, no sudden respect, no shift in attitude, just a simple nod. All right. Zane was not sure why that amused him, but it did. He glanced at his car, then back at her. You have been doing this long? Long enough, she replied. He almost asked more, almost, but something about her made him pause. She did not seem like someone who appreciated unnecessary questions. Or maybe she was someone who had answered too many already. A breeze passed through, carrying dust with it. Lila squinted slightly, adjusting her position. Zane noticed how naturally she moved in her wheelchair. No struggle, no hesitation. It was not something she was trapped in, it was something she had mastered. That realization settled deeply in his chest. Thank you, he said again. This time it sounded different, more sincere. Lila gave a small nod. Drive safe. Zane walked back to his car, but something held him there for a second. He glanced at her again. She had already moved on, rearranging her tools, preparing for the next job, as if he and everything about him did not matter. And that was what unsettled him the most. He got into his car and drove off, but his mind did not leave. It stayed behind on that dusty road with a woman who refused to be defined by anything except her skill. Time passed, and still Zane could not shake the feeling. At a traffic stop, he tapped his fingers lightly against the steering wheel, then stopped, then tapped again. Restless, unfocused. This was not like him. He was a man of control, precision, clear decisions. But now his thoughts were scattered, and all of them led back to one person, Lila. He exhaled slowly, shaking his head. It is nothing, he muttered to himself. Just a mechanic, just a moment. That is all it was. But deep down, he knew that was not true. because for the first time in a long time, someone had treated him like he was ordinary. And instead of feeling insulted, he felt seen. Back on the dusty roadside, Lila picked up another tool, her movement steady as ever. But for just a brief moment, she paused, her gaze drifting toward the direction the car had disappeared. Then she shook her head slightly and continued working, because for her, he was just another customer. Or at least, that was what she told herself. The road looked exactly the same, dusty, quiet, unchanging. But somehow, it did not feel the same to Zane. He slowed his car as he approached the familiar stretch, his fingers tightening slightly around the steering wheel. He told himself he was just passing through, that this route was convenient, that there was no deeper reason for being here. But even he did not believe that. His eyes scanned ahead, and there she was, exactly where he had left her. Lila sat in her usual spot, her wheelchair angled slightly toward the road, tools spread neatly beside her. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow over everything, making the dust shimmer faintly in the air. She was working on a small generator this time, her hands moving with that same quiet confidence he had not been able to forget. For a moment, Zane did not move. He just watched. It was strange. In his world, everything was fast. Decisions, deals, movement, noise. But here everything slowed down, and for reasons he could not explain, he liked it. A horn blared behind him. Zane blinked, realizing he had been sitting in the middle of the road longer than necessary. He quickly drove forward, pulling over a short distance away. His heart was beating slightly faster than usual, he noticed, and immediately frowned. Why? He muttered under his breath. He turned off the engine. Silence filled the car. For a second, he considered leaving, just starting the car again and driving off like this had never happened. But instead he opened the door. Lila did not look up immediately. She had already heard the car, recognized the sound, not the engine, but the hesitation. A vehicle that stopped without urgency. That usually meant one of two things: a customer or trouble. She tightened one last screw before finally lifting her head. And there he was, standing there like he had every reason to be, well-dressed, composed, out of place. Again. Lila blinked once, then narrowed her eyes slightly. You again. There was no warmth in her tone, no excitement, just pure, unfiltered suspicion. Zane almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he slipped his hands into his pockets. My car is fine, he said. Lila raised an eyebrow. Then why are you here? Straight to the point. No small talk, no pretending. Zane hesitated, because suddenly he did not have a good answer. He started, then stopped. Lila crossed her arms slightly, waiting, unimpressed, unmoved. I wanted to say thank you properly, he finished. Lila stared at him for a long second. Then she let out a small, dry laugh. Properly? Her gaze flicked briefly to his car. Your car is working. It is. You paid me. I did. She looked back at him. So, what exactly is missing? Zane exhaled quietly. That question landed harder than he expected, because the truth was, he did not know. I do not know, he admitted. That answer surprised her. Lila tilted her head slightly, studying him more carefully now. People like him did not say, I do not know. They usually had answers, confidence, certainty. But this was different. She murmured. Then she turned back to her work. If you do not know, I cannot help you. Zane blinked. That was not the response he expected. Wait. Lila did not look up. I am working. And just like that, he was dismissed. For a brief second, Zane stood there, unsure of what to do. No one ignored him like this. No one brushed him aside. But instead of feeling offended, he felt something else. Amusement. You always treat your customers like this? He asked. Lila picked up another tool. Only the ones who do not need help. Zane let out a quiet laugh. Fair. He glanced around, noticing the lack of other customers. You are not busy. Lila did not miss a beat. I am still working. Another silence fell between them, but this one felt different. Less tense. More curious. Zane stepped a little closer, careful not to invade her space. What are you fixing? He asked. Lila paused briefly, then answered. Generator. Can I see? She glanced up at him. For a moment, it looked like she might refuse. Then she shrugged slightly. If you want. Zane crouched beside her, his expensive trousers brushing against the dusty ground. He did not seem to care, and that Lila noticed. She shifted slightly, giving him a better view. This part is worn out, she explained, pointing. It affects the ignition. Zane leaned in, genuinely paying attention. And you can fix it? For now, she said. but it will need replacement eventually. There it was again. That clarity, that honesty. She did not oversell, did not exaggerate, just facts. You are very straightforward, he said. Lila glanced at him briefly. Life is easier that way. Zane nodded slowly. He believed that, or at least he wanted to. A light breeze passed, lifting a bit of dust into the air. Without thinking, Zane reached out and held down the edge of her tool cloth before it could flip. Lila noticed, and this time she paused. It was such a small thing, but it was not necessary. He did not have to do it. He was not gaining anything from it. "Thank you," she said quietly. Zane looked at her, and for the first time there was a hint of softness in her voice. "You are welcome," he replied. They worked in silence for a while after that. Not together, but not separately either. Zane found himself watching her again, not in the obvious way, but in the details. The way she adjusted her position effortlessly. The way her hands moved without wasted motion. The way her face shifted slightly when she was concentrating. "You have been doing this long?" he said after a while. Lila did not look up. "Yes." "How did you learn?" She tightened something, paused, then continued. "Life taught me." Zane frowned slightly. "That is not an answer." Lila glanced at him. "It is the only one you are getting." He raised his hands slightly in surrender. "All right." But the curiosity did not leave him. If anything, it grew. "Do you always work here?" he asked. "Yes." "Every day?" "Most days." Zane nodded slowly, then asked the question he had been holding back. "Do you not ever want more?" Lila stopped. Completely. The air shifted. Subtle, but noticeable. She slowly turned her head toward him, her expression unreadable. "What do you mean by more?" Zane hesitated, because suddenly he realized how that sounded. "I mean something bigger," he clarified. "A shop, a business, expansion." Lila held his gaze for a long moment, then she looked away. "I want many things," she said quietly. Her hands resumed moving, but wanting does not always change reality. That answer stayed with him long after she said it. For the first time, Zane saw it clearly. Not just her strength, but the weight she carried. The quiet acceptance. The things she did not say. And something inside him shifted again, deeper this time. A customer approached from the distance. Lila noticed immediately. "Your visit is over," she said. Zane blinked. "That is it?" Lila gave a small shrug. "You said your car is fine." He exhaled, shaking his head slightly. "You are not easy to talk to." Lila almost smiled. Almost. "Then stop trying so hard," she said. Zane stood up slowly, brushing dust off his clothes. He looked at her one last time. "Will you be here tomorrow?" Lila did not answer immediately. Then, "Yes," he nodded. "Good." She frowned slightly. "Why?" Zane paused, then smiled faintly. "I might need help again." Lila's eyes narrowed slightly, but she did not argue. "Then make sure your car actually has a problem," she said. Zane chuckled. "I will try." He walked back to his car, but this time he did not feel restless, because now he had a reason to return. And Lila, she watched him leave, just for a second longer than necessary. Then she shook her head lightly and turned back to her work. But something had changed. She felt it, even if she refused to name it, because for the first time in a long time, someone had come back. Not out of need, but out of choice. And that was far more dangerous. The sun rose softer, not as harsh, not as unforgiving, but the dust was still there, always there. Lila arrived earlier than usual. She told herself it was because she had more work to do, because mornings were cooler, because it made sense. But deep down she knew that was not the real reason. She adjusted her position, spreading her tools carefully over the familiar worn cloth. Everything was in place, everything was the same, yet something felt different. Her eyes drifted to the road, empty. She exhaled quietly. "Good," she muttered, as if she had expected something else. She picked up a wrench and focused on the small engine in front of her. But her concentration was not as sharp as usual. Her mind kept wandering, back to yesterday, to his voice, to his questions, to the way he looked at her, not with pity, not with doubt, but with something she did not quite understand. Lila tightened a bolt a little harder than necessary, then stopped, shook her head slightly. "This is nonsense," she murmured, and forced herself back into the rhythm of work. Customers came and went. A motorcycle, a generator, a small car with a stubborn ignition problem, each one fixed, each one handled with the same quiet confidence. But still, she noticed the road, and then she heard it, that engine. Lila did not look up immediately. She did not need to. She recognized it now. The car slowed, stopped. She let out a small breath she did not realize she was holding. Then finally she looked up. Zane stepped out of the car, dressed more simply this time, still neat, still unmistakably refined, but less distant. Lila raised an eyebrow. "You again?" Zane smiled slightly. "Good morning." Lila did not return the smile. "Is your car broken today?" Zane paused, then yes. Lila's eyes narrowed immediately. She glanced at the car, then back at him. "Open it!" Zane walked to the front and lifted the bonnet. Lila wheeled herself closer, her expression focused. She leaned forward, scanning the engine. Her hands moved lightly across the familiar parts. Then she stopped. Silence. Slowly, she leaned back and looked at him. "There is nothing wrong with your car." Zane did not respond immediately. Lila crossed her arms. "You lied." Her voice was not loud, but it carried weight. Zane exhaled softly. "Yes." Lila stared at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "You wasted my time." She turned her wheelchair slightly, ready to move away. "I wanted to see you," Zane said. That stopped her. Not dramatically, not instantly, but enough. Lila did not turn back immediately. Her hands rested still on the wheels, her expression unreadable. "That is not a good reason," she said after a moment. Zane stepped closer. "Maybe not," he admitted, "but it is the truth." Lila turned slowly to face him now. Her eyes searched his face carefully, as if trying to find something hidden beneath his words. "Why?" she asked. The question was simple but heavy. Zane hesitated, because for once he did not have a calculated answer. "I do not know," he said. Lila frowned slightly. "You do not know why you came back?" Zane shook his head slowly. "I just did." That answer lingered between them. Strange, incomplete, but honest. Lila studied him for another moment. Then she sighed quietly. "You are a very confusing person," she said. Zane let out a small laugh. "I have been told that before." Lila almost smiled. Almost. She turned back to her tools. "If you are not here for work, do not distract me." Zane did not leave. Instead he stayed, and after a few minutes he sat down on the dusty ground. Lila noticed immediately. Her hands paused mid-motion. She glanced at him, then at his clothes, then back at him. "You will stain that," she said. Zane shrugged. "It is just clothes." Lila looked at him for a second longer than necessary. Then she returned to her work, but something had shifted again. "Why are you really here?" she asked after a while. Zane leaned back slightly, resting his hands behind him. The sun warmed his face, but he did not seem to mind. "I told you," he said. "I wanted to see you." Lila shook her head. "That is not enough." Zane looked at her. "And what would be enough?" Lila did not answer immediately. She tightened something, adjusted another, then she spoke. "People like you do not come back for no reason." Zane tilted his head slightly. "People like me?" Lila finally looked at him fully. "Yes." She gestured lightly toward him. "Your clothes, your car, the way you talk." Her voice softened slightly. "You do not belong here." The words were not meant to insult. They were simply true. Zane nodded slowly. "Maybe not." Lila frowned. "Then why are you here?" This time he had an answer. "Because you are." The air stilled. Lila's grip tightened slightly on her tool. That was unexpected. She looked away quickly, focusing back on the engine. "You talk too much," she muttered. Zane smiled. "And you do not talk enough." Lila almost laughed. Almost. Silence settled again, but now it felt different, warmer, softer. After a while, Zane spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" Lila sighed. "You have been asking since yesterday." He chuckled. "Fair enough." Then, "Were you always a mechanic?" Lila froze. Not completely, not obviously, but enough. Her hands slowed. Her expression changed, just slightly. "No," she said quietly. Zane noticed immediately the shift, the hesitation. "What changed?" he asked gently. Lila did not respond. Seconds passed. Then she put down her tool and leaned back slightly. For the first time, she was not working. "There was an accident," she said. Her voice was calm, but distant. Zane sat up slightly, his attention fully on her now. "I lost the use of my legs," she continued. "No drama, no emotion, just fact." But somehow that made it heavier. "I could not go back to what I used to do," she added. "So I learned something else." Zane felt something tighten in his chest. "You taught yourself?" he asked. Lila nodded. "How?" She shrugged slightly. "Watching, asking, trying, failing." Then she looked at him, and trying again. Zane held her gaze. And for the first time he saw it fully. Not just strength, not just resilience, but survival. Pure, unfiltered. "You make it sound easy," he said. Lila shook her head. "It was not." A small pause, then, "But I did not have a choice." That sentence settled deeply between them. Zane leaned back slightly, exhaling. In his world, there were always choices, options, backups, safety nets. but her world was different, and for the first time he truly understood that. After a while, Lila spoke again. "What about you?" Zane blinked. "Me?" Lila nodded. "You ask questions. Answer one." He smiled slightly. "All right." She waited. Zane looked out at the road briefly, then back at her. "I grew up with everything," he said. Lila did not react. She simply listened. "Money, comfort, opportunities," he continued. Then he paused. "But none of it felt like mine." Lila's eyes shifted slightly. "What do you mean?" she asked. Zane exhaled. "My life was planned before I even understood it," he said. "What I would study, who I would become even." He hesitated slightly. "Who I would marry," Lila frowned. "That is not normal." Zane gave a small, humorless smile. "In my world it is." Silence followed. Two people, two completely different lives, and yet somehow sitting in the same space. Lila looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded slightly. "That sounds exhausting." Zane laughed softly. "It is." For a while, neither of them spoke, but neither of them felt the need to leave, because for the first time, they were not just strangers. They were two people beginning to understand each other, and somewhere in between, something fragile, something new, was beginning to grow. The day began like any other, but it did not feel like it. Lila noticed it the moment she woke up. There was a strange restlessness sitting in her chest, quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore. She tried to shake it off, tried to convince herself it was nothing, just another morning, just another day on the roadside, but something in her refused to settle. She arrived at her usual spot earlier than usual, her wheels leaving faint tracks in the dry earth behind her. The air was still cool, the sun only beginning to rise, casting a soft golden light across the road. For a brief moment, everything felt peaceful. Then her thoughts returned. Zane, his voice, his questions, the way he listened, the way he saw her. Lila exhaled sharply. "This is foolish," she muttered. She had met people before, kind people, interesting people, but none of them had stayed in her thoughts like this. None of them had returned, and that was the problem. He had returned, again and again, not for work, not for necessity, but for her. Lila tightened her grip on her tools slightly. She did not like that. She did not like how it made her feel, because feelings came with expectations, and expectations led to disappointment. She shook her head and focused on her work. Customers came and went, and slowly the unease began to fade until a voice broke through the afternoon noise. Lila. Her hands froze. She knew that voice. Slowly she turned, but it was not him. It was Rafe, a regular customer, loud, talkative, always full of stories no one asked for. Lila relaxed slightly. "What is it?" she asked. Rafe grinned, holding up his phone. "You did not tell me you know big people." Lila frowned. "What are you talking about?" He stepped closer, excitement practically radiating off him. "This man, this Zane, you fix his car, right?" The name hit her instantly. Her chest tightened. "Yes," she said slowly. "Why?" Rafe's grin widened. "Why? You do not know who he is?" Lila's frown deepened. "No." Rafe laughed loudly. "Ah, Lila, you are joking." He thrust the phone toward her. "See it well." Lila hesitated for a second, then she looked, and everything changed. Her eyes scanned the screen. A photo, clear, sharp, undeniable. It was him, Zane, but not the Zane she knew. This one stood in a perfectly tailored suit, surrounded by cameras, reporters, flashing lights. Behind him was a massive building, glass, steel, wealth, power. The headline beneath the image read, "Young billionaire Zane Harrington expands business empire." Lila's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of her wheelchair. "No," she whispered. Rafe laughed again. "You mean you did not know? That man is a big shot, billionaire, one of the richest young men in this country." Lila did not respond. She could not, because suddenly everything made sense. The car, the clothes, the confidence, the calmness. He did not just belong to a different world. He owned it. "And you fix his car like he is a normal customer," Rafe continued, still amused. "Lila, you are too much." Lila forced a small smile. But inside everything was unraveling. Rafe eventually left, still talking, still laughing, but his voice faded into the background because Lila was not there anymore. Her mind was somewhere else, replaying every moment, every conversation, every look. "You do not belong here," she had said that, and he had agreed, but he had not told her the truth, not fully, not clearly. Her chest tightened. "Why?" she whispered to herself. "Why hide it? Why pretend? Why come back?" Like he was just a normal man, The answer came quickly, because he wanted to, because he could, because people like him had the luxury of choosing how they showed up in the world. Layla's jaw tightened. She did not. Her reality was not something she could step in and out of. It was constant, unavoidable, real, and suddenly what had felt genuine felt different, felt like a game. The sound of a car approaching pulled her back. Her heart skipped. She knew that engine. Of course she did. It stopped. Silence followed, then the door opened. Lila. His voice, the same, but now it sounded different. She did not look up immediately. She needed a moment, just one, to steady herself. Then she lifted her head. Their eyes met, and Zane knew instantly something was wrong. Her expression had changed. The warmth gone, replaced by something colder, sharper. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Lila held his gaze. Then she reached beside her, picked up the phone Rafe had forgotten, and held it up. Zane's eyes dropped to the screen, and everything became clear. He exhaled slowly. "So," Lila said. Her voice was calm, too calm. "You are a billionaire." It was not a question. Zane looked back at her. Yes. The word hung in the air, heavy, final. Lila nodded slowly. "I see." Silence stretched between them. Zane took a step closer. "I wanted to tell you." "When?" she cut in. Her eyes locked onto his. "When exactly were you planning to tell me?" Zane paused, because he did not have a good answer. He started, then stopped. Lila let out a small, humorless laugh. "Let me guess," she said. "You were waiting for the right time." Her voice sharpened slightly. "The perfect moment?" Zane shook his head. "It was not like that." Lila leaned forward slightly. "Then what was it like?" There it was, the question he could not escape. "I did not want it to matter," he said finally. Lila blinked, then she laughed. But this time there was no humor in it. "You did not want it to matter." She shook her head slowly. "That is easy for you to say." Her voice cracked slightly, but she steadied it quickly. "You get to choose when your money matters," she continued. "When it shows, when it does not." Her hand tightened on the wheel of her chair. "I do not have that choice." The words hit harder than anything else she had said. Zane felt it deeply. "I was not pretending," he said quietly. Lila looked at him. "You were," she replied. Simple, direct, painfully true. "You came here acting like you were just normal," she continued. Zane frowned slightly. "I am normal?" Lila's eyes flashed. "No," she said, "you are not." The silence that followed was suffocating. "You do not wake up worrying about your next meal," she said. "You do not sit here all day hoping someone will come. You do not know what it feels like to be looked at and dismissed before you even speak." Each word landed like a blow. "You do not get to call yourself normal," she finished. Zane did not argue, because he could not after that. "I just wanted you to know me," he said softly. Lila's expression faltered for just a second, but she caught herself. "Then you should have told me the truth," she said. Her voice was quieter now, but somehow more painful, because now she hesitated, then finished. "I do not know what was real." That sentence broke something. Zane stepped closer. It was all real. Lila shook her head. "I do not know that." Her eyes met his again, and that is the problem. Silence fell, long, heavy, unforgiving. Finally, Lila turned away. "I have work to do," she said, dismissal clear, final. Zane stood there for a moment longer, hoping she would look back. She did not. So slowly he turned, walked back to his car, and left. This time the silence he left behind felt different. Not calm, but broken. Layla sat still long after he was gone. Her hands rested in her lap, unmoving. Her chest felt tight, her thoughts loud. She had wanted honesty, and now she had it. But somehow it hurt more than the lie, because now she knew the man she had started to care about belonged to a world that could never truly include her. And no matter how much she tried to deny it, that truth changed everything. The house stood like a fortress, tall gates, polished marble floors, walls that carried generations of wealth, power, and expectations. Zane had not been back in days, and even now, as he stepped out of his car and handed the keys to the security guard, something about the place felt unfamiliar, not because it had changed, but because he had. "Welcome back, sir," the guard said respectfully. Zane nodded absently. His mind was not here. It was somewhere else, on a dusty roadside, with a woman who now refused to look at him. He walked through the large doors, his footsteps echoing faintly in the vast space. Everything was spotless, ordered, controlled, just the way his parents liked it. Zane. He stopped. His father stood at the far end of the room, dressed in a crisp, traditional outfit, his presence commanding as always. Beside him was his mother, elegant, poised, her gaze already sharp with expectation. "You are finally home," she said. Not relief, not warmth, just observation. Zane walked forward slowly. I have been busy. His father gave a short nod. We know. That was all, but somehow it carried weight. His mother stepped closer, her eyes scanning him carefully. You look different. Zane did not respond. She tilted her head slightly. Where have you been spending your time? There it was, the question behind all the others. Zane met her gaze. Working. His father's voice cut in. And outside of work? Silence. Zane exhaled slowly. He was not here to lie, not anymore. I have been seeing someone, he said. The room stilled. His mother's expression did not change immediately, but her eyes did. Seeing someone? She repeated. Zane nodded. His father's gaze sharpened. Who? There was no point delaying it. Her name is Lila. A pause, then his mother smiled. Not a warm smile, not a happy one, a controlled one. That is interesting, she said. Zane frowned slightly. Why? She glanced at his father briefly, then back at him. Because, she said carefully, we have already chosen someone for you. The words landed like a stone. Zane went still. What? He said quietly. His father stepped forward. You are at the stage in your life where certain decisions must be made, he said, calm, firm, final. And marriage is one of them. Zane stared at him. You already chose someone? He repeated. His mother nodded. She is from a respectable family. She said, educated, elegant, well-raised. Each word felt deliberate, measured. She understands our world, his father added. There it was again. Our world. Zane felt something tighten in his chest. I am already seeing someone, he said. His mother's expression hardened slightly. Yes, she said. This Lila. The way she said the name, careful, detached. Zane's eyes narrowed. You know about her? His father let out a quiet breath. We know enough. Silence. Zane already knew he was not going to like what came next. She is not suitable, his mother said. The words were soft but sharp. Zane's jaw tightened. Based on what? His father did not hesitate. Everything. That single word carried judgment, finality. Zane took a step forward. You do not even know her. His mother's gaze did not waver. We know she is not from our class, she said. There it was, not hidden, not softened, just truth. And we know, his father added, that she is physically disadvantaged. Zane's hands clenched slightly. You mean she is in a wheelchair? His mother did not respond, but her silence said enough. That changes nothing, Zane said firmly. His father's expression darkened slightly. It changes everything. The air grew heavier. She cannot stand beside you in the life you are meant to live. His father continued. She already does, Zane replied. His voice was steady, unshaken. His mother shook her head. You are being emotional. No, he said. I am being honest. Silence. Then his father spoke again. This is not just about you. Zane let out a sharp breath. It never is it? His mother stepped forward. This family has a name, she said, a reputation. And I am part of that family, Zane replied. Yes, his father said, which is why your choices affect more than just you. Zane laughed quietly. But your choices do not affect me? That question lingered, unanswered, because they did not need to answer it. To them, the answer was obvious. His mother's tone softened slightly. You will understand one day, she said. Zane shook his head. No, he said. I understand now. A pause, then. I am not marrying someone you chose. The words were clear, final. The room went silent. His father's gaze hardened completely now. This is not a suggestion. Zane met his eyes. Neither is this. The tension snapped. You will not throw your future away for a mistake, his father said sharply. Lila is not a mistake. His voice did not rise, but it carried something stronger, conviction. His mother's composure cracked slightly. You barely know her, she said. Zane did not hesitate. I know enough. His father stepped closer now. And what exactly do you know? He demanded. Zane held his ground. I know she is stronger than anyone I have ever met. I know she is honest. I know she did not care who I was, only what I did. His voice softened slightly. And I know that when I am with her, he paused, I feel like myself. That silence that followed was different. Even his parents felt it, but it did not change their stance. His father straightened slightly. Then you have a choice. Zane's chest tightened. He already knew what was coming. You can have your inheritance. His father said, your position, your future. A pause. Or, his mother finished it, you can have her. The words hung in the air, heavy, unforgiving. Zane did not speak immediately, because for the first time, this was not just about feelings. This was real. Everything he had ever known on one side, and Lila on the other. His mother stepped closer. You do not have to answer now, she said softly. But he did, because the answer was already there. He looked at them, then said, "I choose Lila." Silence. Absolute. His mother's face fell. His father did not react immediately. Then he nodded slowly. "Then you have made your decision." The words felt like a door closing. "Pack your things," his father continued. "You will no longer have access to this house or anything connected to it." Zane did not flinch. "All right." That surprised them, just slightly. His mother stepped forward again. "Think carefully," she said. "I have," he replied. Her voice softened. "You will lose everything." Zane looked at her, then said quietly, "No." A small pause. "I am choosing everything." And with that he turned and walked away, not rushed, not hesitant, certain. For the first time in his life, truly certain. And back on that dusty road, Lila sat in silence, unaware that somewhere far away a man had just chosen her over everything he had ever known. The air was unusually quiet, not the kind of quiet Lila was used to, the slow, dusty stillness of the roadside. This one felt heavier, as if something unseen was shifting. Lila adjusted the cloth beneath her tools, smoothing out the creases with careful hands. Her movements were steady, practiced, normal, but her mind was not. It had been some time since she last saw him, some time since the argument, some time since the truth had come crashing down between them like something fragile that could not be repaired. She told herself it did not matter, told herself it was better this way, cleaner, safer. People like him did not stay. And even if they did not belong. Still, her eyes drifted to the road, again and again. Then she sighed, annoyed at herself. "This is pointless," she muttered. She picked up a wrench and focused on the motorcycle in front of her, a stubborn engine, one that required patience, precision, tension, good. That was exactly what she needed, something to distract her. The sun climbed higher, customers came and went, work filled her hands, but not her thoughts, because no matter how much she tried, there was a space, and she knew exactly who had left it there. Then a shadow fell across the ground. Lila frowned slightly. "Come back later, I am." She stopped. Something felt different. She slowly looked up, and for a second she did not recognize him. Zane stood in front of her, but not the Zane she knew. No polished shoes, no crisp suit, no quiet, effortless wealth. Just a simple shirt, faded jeans, and a small travel bag slung over his shoulder. Dust clung to his clothes. His hair was not perfectly styled, his posture less guarded, more human. Lila blinked. "What happened to you?" she asked before she could stop herself. Zane let out a small breath. "I left," he said. Lila frowned. "Left where?" He met her eyes. "Home." Silence. The word hung between them, heavy, real. Lila searched his face, looking for something. A joke? A lie? A misunderstanding? She found none. "You are serious," she said quietly. Zane nodded. "I chose you." The words hit her harder than anything else he had ever said. Lila's grip tightened on the wheel of her chair. "Do not say that," she said quickly. Zane frowned slightly. "Why?" "Because you do not know what you are saying," she replied. Her voice was not harsh, but it carried urgency. "You cannot just walk away from your life like that." Zane took a step closer. "I already did." Lila shook her head. "No," she said, "you do not understand." Her chest rose and fell unevenly now. "That is your family, your home, your future." Zane's voice softened. "And you are part of my future." Lila looked away immediately. "That is not the same thing. It is to me." The simplicity of his answer made it harder to fight. Lila swallowed. "You're going to regret this," she said. Zane did not hesitate. "No, I will not." She laughed slightly, but there was no humor in it. "You say that now," she said, "but what happens when reality sets in?" She gestured around them. "This is my life." Her voice dropped slightly. "This dust, this heat, this uncertainty." She looked back at him. "Can you live like this?" Zane did not answer immediately. He looked around, really looked at the road, at her tools, at the small space she occupied in a world that had never made room for her. Then he nodded. "Yes." Lila shook her head. "No." Her voice broke slightly now. "You do not get it." She leaned forward slightly. "You did not choose this life. I did not either, but I had to accept it." Her eyes locked onto his. "You are choosing it out of emotion." Zane's gaze softened. "Maybe," he said, then added, "but I am staying because of conviction." That word landed differently. Lila fell silent because for the first time she saw it. He was not confused, he was not impulsive, he was certain, and that scared her more than anything else. "What if I do not want this?" she asked suddenly. Zane stilled. "Want what?" "This," she said. "This responsibility." Her voice dropped. "You choosing me over everything." Silence. Zane studied her carefully now. You think this is a burden? He asked quietly. Lila hesitated, then yes. The word felt heavy because it was not entirely true, but it was not entirely false either. Zane nodded slowly. Then let me carry it, he said. Lila blinked. What? I made the choice, he continued. So let me carry the weight of it. Her throat tightened slightly. That is not how it works, she said. Then teach me how it does. The sincerity in his voice was too much. Lila looked away again. You are making this harder than it needs to be, she said. Zane let out a small breath. Or maybe I'm making it honest. That word again, honest. Lila closed her eyes briefly because deep down she knew he was not lying, and that made it harder to push him away. What are you going to do now? She asked after a moment. Zane shifted the bag on his shoulder. I will find somewhere to stay. Lila frowned. You do not have anywhere? He shook his head. Not anymore. That reality settled heavily between them. For the first time, this was not just words. This was real. You left everything, she said quietly. Zane nodded. Yes. Lila looked at him for a long moment, then she exhaled slowly. There is a small place nearby, she said. Zane blinked. What? A rental, she continued. Nothing special, but it is manageable. Zane's expression softened. You would show me. Lila hesitated, then nodded. After I finish work. Zane smiled slightly. Thank you. Lila did not respond because she was not ready to acknowledge what that meant. Later that evening, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and gold. Lila wheeled herself slowly down a narrow path, Zane walking beside her. The area was quiet, simple, far from the life he had known. She stopped in front of a small building. This is it, she said. Zane looked at it. It was not impressive, not large, not luxurious, but it was real. He nodded. It is perfect. Lila glanced at him. You do not have to pretend. I am not. She studied his face carefully. Then for the first time, she believed him. Time passed. Zane settled into the small house. Life changed quickly. No drivers, no staff, no comfort waiting at his fingertips, just effort. He learned how to cook badly. He learned how to clean slowly. He learned how to exist without everything being done for him, and through it all, he kept showing up every day to the roadside, not as a customer, but as someone who stayed, who helped, who tried. Lila watched him closely, waiting for regret, for frustration, for the moment he would realize what he had lost, but it did not come. Instead, he adapted, and slowly something inside her began to shift, because this time he did not just say he chose her. He proved it every single day, and for the first time in her life, Lila felt something unfamiliar. Not survival, not endurance, but something softer, something dangerous. Hope. The first morning felt different. Not quiet, not peaceful, but uncertain. Zane woke up to the sound of a rooster crowing somewhere in the distance. He frowned slightly, eyes still closed, his body instinctively waiting for the familiar hum of an air conditioner. It did not come. Instead, warm air filled the small room, heavy and still. His eyes opened slowly. The ceiling above him was plain, no intricate design, no chandelier, just simple. Reality settled in. He was no longer in his father's mansion. He sat up, running a hand through his hair. For a moment, he just sat there, thinking. Then he exhaled. No going back, he muttered. There was no regret in his voice, just acknowledgement. He stood, stretching slightly before stepping outside. The compound was quiet, the morning light soft against the small buildings around him. This was his life now, and for the first time he had to build it himself. Later that morning he arrived at the roadside. Lila was already there, working on a car engine, her hands moving with focused precision. She did not look up immediately. You are late, she said. Zane checked his wrist out of habit. No watch. He almost smiled. I did not know I had a schedule, he replied. Lila tightened something, then leaned back slightly. You do now. He nodded. All right. She glanced at him briefly. Did you eat? The question caught him off guard. Yes, he said. Then after a pause, bread. Lila nodded. That is not enough. Zane chuckled slightly. It is a start. She did not argue, but she did not agree either. The day began like any other. Customers came, engines failed, problems needed solving, but this time Zane stayed, not watching from the side, not observing from a distance, helping. First, he did not know what he was doing. Pass me the wrench, Lila said. He picked up the wrong one. She sighed. No, the other one. He handed her another. Not that one either. Zane paused, then held up a third. Lila glanced at it. That one. He smiled slightly. Progress. Time passed. Zane wiped sweat from his forehead. his shirt slightly stained with oil now. "You are doing it wrong," Lila said without looking up. He frowned. "I have not even done anything yet." "That is why it is wrong," he laughed. "You are not very encouraging." Lila almost smiled. "Do you want encouragement or do you want to learn?" He raised his hand slightly. "Teach me." And she did, not gently, not slowly, but honestly. "Hold it like this. No, not like that. You are forcing it. Stop. Listen to the engine." Zane paused. "Listen." Lila glanced at him. "Yes." He frowned slightly. "I do not hear anything." She shook her head. "That is because you are not paying attention." She tapped the engine lightly. "Every sound means something." Zane leaned in, trying again. This time he heard it, a faint uneven rhythm. "Oh," he said. Lila nodded. "Exactly." Time passed and slowly things began to change. Zane stopped hesitating, stopped guessing. He started understanding, not perfectly, not completely, but enough. "You are improving," Lila said one afternoon. Zane looked up, surprised. That sounded like a compliment. Lila shrugged. It was an observation. He smiled. "I will take it." But outside the roadside things were harder, much harder. Zane began reaching out to contacts, old connections, business associates, but this time the responses were different, cold, distant, careful. "We heard about your situation. Maybe this is not the right time. Let us talk in the future." Doors that once opened easily now stayed closed. One evening he sat outside his small home, his phone resting loosely in his hand. His jaw tightened slightly. "They are avoiding me," he said. Lila, who sat nearby cleaning her tools, did not look up. "Of course they are." Zane frowned. "That is it?" She shrugged. "You left your father's influence," she said. "They are not sure what you are without it." The words stung, but they were true. "I am still me," he said. Lila nodded. "Yes," then added, "but now they want proof." Silence. Zane leaned back slightly, staring at the sky. "How do I prove that?" he asked. Lila paused, then said, "Start small." He glanced at her. "What do you mean?" She set her tools aside. "You do not build something big immediately." She said, "You build something that works." Her voice was calm, steady. "Fix one problem." She continued, "Then another, then another." Zane listened. "Before you know it." She looked at him. "You have built something real." That stayed with him. The next day he started differently. Instead of chasing big opportunities, he looked for small ones. A struggling transport business, a supplier with poor logistics, a mechanic shop lacking organization. Problems. Simple, clear, and he solved them. Not with money, but with ideas, structure, effort. It was not glamorous. It was not fast, but it worked. Time passed, and slowly things began to grow. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. Zane began earning small amounts at first, then more, enough to sustain himself, enough to build something. And through it all, Lila was there, supporting, challenging. "You are thinking too big again," she said one evening. Zane frowned. "I have to think big." Lila shook her head. "You have to build right." He exhaled. "You are very stubborn." She almost smiled. "So are you." Their lives became intertwined. Work, conversations, shared struggles, simple meals, long evenings, quiet understanding. Zane began to see things differently. Not through wealth, not through status, but through effort, through patience, through resilience. And Lila, she began to see something too. Not just a man who chose her, but a man who was becoming something new, something stronger. Because this time, he was not being handed a future. He was building one with his own hands. And somehow that made everything more meaningful. Not just for him, but for her too. Because for the first time, she was not just surviving. She was part of something growing, something real, something that belonged to both of them, and deep down she knew this was only the beginning. The evening air was calm, not silent, not empty, but gentle. Lila sat outside her small home, her hands resting loosely in her lap as she watched the sky shift slowly from gold to deep orange. It was her favorite time of day, the moment when everything paused, when the noise softened, when the world felt less demanding. But lately, even this quiet felt different, because she was not alone in it anymore. Footsteps approached from behind. Familiar, steady. "You have been out here a while," Zane said softly. Lila did not turn immediately. "I like it here," she replied. Zane stepped closer, stopping beside her. "I know." For a moment, neither of them spoke, but the silence was not empty. It was full, full of everything they had been through, everything they had built. Everything they had yet to say. Time had passed since Zane walked away from his old life. Time of struggle, of learning, of building. And somehow they had found a rhythm. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Zane had grown into his new life in ways even he had not expected. His small business ventures were beginning to stabilize. Not massive, not empire level, but steady, respectable. His name, no longer carried by his father's shadow, was slowly beginning to stand on its own. And Lila had changed too. Not outwardly. She was still the same strong, focused woman on the roadside, still sharp, still independent, but inside something had softened, not weakness, but openness. And that terrified her. "You are thinking again," Zane said, breaking the silence. Lila sighed lightly. "I always think." He smiled. "You think too much." She glanced at him briefly. "And you do not think enough." He chuckled. "Maybe that is why this works." Lila did not respond, because she did not know if it did. Not completely, not yet. Later that night, Lila sat alone inside her room, staring at nothing in particular. Her mind was restless again, but this time it was not about him leaving, it was about him staying, about everything that had happened, everything that had changed, and everything that might come next. She exhaled slowly. "Why does this feel so difficult?" she whispered. Because it should not be. He had chosen her, proven it, stayed, built something real. So why? Why was she still holding back? The answer came quietly. Because it was him. Because now he was not just someone passing through her life, he was part of it, and that made the risk greater. The next day the roadside was busy. Engines, voices, movement, but Lila's focus was not as sharp as usual. She tightened a bolt, too hard. "Careful," Zane said beside her. Lila paused, then loosened it slightly. "I know," she said. Zane studied her for a moment. "You are distracted." "I am working." "That is not what I said." Lila sighed. "You are very observant." Zane shrugged. "I pay attention." That again. He always paid attention. To things others missed. To things she tried to hide. Lila wiped her hands slowly. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She hesitated, then nodded. "What are we doing?" he asked. The question was simple, but it hit harder than anything else. Lila looked at him. "What do you mean?" Zane held her gaze. "I mean this," he said. He gestured between them. "Us." Lila's chest tightened slightly. "We are living," she said. Zane shook his head. "That is not an answer." Lila looked away. "It is the only one I have." Zane stepped closer. "No," he said gently. "It is the safest one you have." That landed, because it was true. Lila swallowed. "I do not know what you want me to say," she admitted. Zane's voice softened. "I want you to be honest." Silence, long, heavy. Then Lila spoke. "I am afraid," she said. The words felt fragile, but real. Zane did not interrupt. "Everything is good now," she continued. Her voice trembled slightly. "And that is what scares me." She finally looked at him. "I do not know how to trust something this good." Zane's expression softened. He took another step closer. "You do not have to trust it all at once," he said. Lila shook her head slightly. "That is not how my life works." "Then maybe it is time it changes." She let out a small breath. "You say that like it is easy." Zane smiled faintly. "I did not say it was easy." Pause. "I just said it is possible." That night Lila did not sleep much. Her thoughts kept circling back to one thing. Possibility. Future. Not just survival. Not just getting through each day, but something more, something lasting, something she had never allowed herself to imagine. The following evening, Zane found her alone again, watching the sky, thinking. He sat beside her quietly, no words, just presence. After a while, he spoke. "Marry me." Lila froze, completely. Her breath caught. "What?" she whispered. Zane turned to her. "I want to marry you." No hesitation, no doubt, just truth. Lila's heart raced. "You are serious?" "Yes." She shook her head slightly. "You cannot just say something like that." "I just did." Lila almost laughed, but emotion caught in her throat instead. "This is not a small decision," she said. "I know. You have already given up everything. And I would do it again." Her eyes filled slightly. "Why?" she asked. Zane held her gaze. "Because loving you is the only thing that has ever felt completely right." Silence, deep, overwhelming. Lila looked away quickly, her chest tightening. "I do not know how to be someone's wife," she admitted. Zane's voice softened. "Then we will learn together." She shook her head. "I do not know how to depend on someone." "Then do not," he said. Lila frowned. "What?" "Be with me," he clarified. "Not because you need me," he reached for her hand gently, "but because you choose me." That broke through. Because that was the first time someone had said it like that. Not pity, not obligation, choice. Lila's eyes filled with tears. She did not try to hide this time. "You are not going to leave?" she asked quietly. Zayn shook his head. "No, even when things get hard, they already have, and you are still here." "Yes." Lila let out a shaky breath, then slowly she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. Zayn's expression softened completely. "Okay." Lila looked at him. "Yes?" A small smile broke through her tears. "I will marry you." And in that moment, everything changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply, because for the first time Lila was not just surviving life, she was choosing it, and she was choosing him. The morning air carried a different kind of energy. Not the heavy stillness Lila once knew, not the uncertain tension of survival. This time felt alive. Lila adjusted the sleeves of her clean, fitted jumpsuit, her reflection staring back at her from the small mirror mounted on the wall. The fabric was new, well-tailored, practical but refined, a far cry from the worn, oil-stained clothes she used to wear every day. She studied herself for a moment longer, then shook her head slightly. "Still me," she murmured, and that mattered. Behind her, Zayn stepped into the room, buttoning the cuffs of his shirt. Simple, sharp, confident. "Are you ready?" he asked. Lila turned slightly, raising an eyebrow. "For what?" Zayn smiled. "You forgot." She frowned slightly. "No." He stepped closer, adjusting the collar of her jumpsuit gently. "You are opening your shop today." Lila stilled. The words hit her softly but deeply. "My workshop," she corrected. Zayn nodded. "Your workshop." A small smile tugged at her lips. "Then yes," she said quietly. "I am ready." The building stood proudly at the corner of a busy street. Not massive, not overwhelming, but solid, clean, intentional. A sign hung above the entrance. Lila Auto Works. The letters gleamed under the morning sun. Lila sat just outside, her hands resting lightly on her wheels as she stared at it. For a moment, she said nothing, because words would not capture it. This was not just a shop, it was proof. Proof of every struggle, every long day, every moment she refused to give up. Zayn stood beside her, watching her quietly. "You built this," he said. Lila shook her head. "We built this," he smiled. "Fair." The opening was simple. No loud celebration, no unnecessary display. Just people, real people. Customers who had known Lila from the roadside, neighbors, small business owners, and curiosity, a lot of curiosity. She has her own place now, that Zayn helped her. They said he used to be rich. No, he is rich. Whispers moved through the small crowd. Lila heard them, but for once they did not affect her, because she knew the truth. This was hers. The first customer arrived before noon, a middle-aged man with a faulty engine. Lila wheeled forward confidently. "What seems to be the problem?" she asked. He hesitated slightly, then smiled. "I heard you are the best." Lila raised an eyebrow. "You heard correctly." Zayn chuckled quietly from the side, and just like that work began. Time passed, and the growth was undeniable. Lila Auto Works expanded quickly, not because of luck, but because of reputation. She was good, consistently good. Customers returned. They referred others. They trusted her, and slowly her name spread. Meanwhile, Zayn was building too. Not loudly, not recklessly, but strategically. The small problems he had once solved had grown into structured systems, logistics, supply chains, partnerships. He built companies that fixed inefficiencies others ignored, and because of that they worked, they grew. His name began to circulate again, but this time it was different. This time it was not tied to his father, it was his. One evening, Zayn sat at the small dining table, papers spread out in front of him. Lila rolled in, wiping her hands with a cloth. "You are working late again," she said. Zayn glanced up. "Just finishing something." She moved closer, looking over the documents. "Another deal?" He nodded. "A big one." Lila studied his face. "You are nervous." Zayn smiled slightly. "Is it that obvious?" Lila shrugged. "Only to me." He leaned back slightly. "If this works," he paused, "it changes everything." Lila tilted her head. "Everything already changed." Zayn looked at her. "Not like this." Silence. Then Lila reached out, placing her hand lightly over his. "Then make sure you are doing it for the right reason," she said. Zayn frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Lila held his gaze. "Not to prove something." Pause. "Not to them." He understood immediately. His father, his past, his old life. Zayn exhaled slowly. "I am not," he said. Then more quietly, "I am doing it for us." Lila nodded. "Good." The deal went through and everything shifted again. Not overnight, but significantly. Zayn's business expanded rapidly. New offices, new staff, new influence. But this time he moved differently. carefully, intentionally, because he knew what it felt like to lose everything. One afternoon, a black car pulled up outside Lila's workshop, different from before, familiar but distant. Lila noticed immediately. Her hands paused mid-motion. Zane stepped out, dressed sharply, confident, powerful. For a brief moment, it felt like the past had returned, but then he smiled and walked toward her. The same man, just evolved. "You are staring," he said. Lila shook her head slightly. "I am observing." He laughed. "Big difference," she smirked. "Very." He glanced around the workshop. "You have been busy." Lila nodded. "So have you." Their eyes met, and in that moment they both understood something. They had grown, not apart, but together. Later that evening, they sat outside again. The same quiet, the same sky, but everything else different. "You have built something incredible," Zane said. Lila looked at him. "So have you." He shook his head slightly. "It is not just about the business." Pause. "It is about who we became." Lila leaned back slightly. "You sound reflective," he smiled. "I am." Silence settled. Then Lila spoke softly. "Do you ever miss it?" Zane glanced at her. "My old life." She nodded. He thought for a moment. Then no. Lila studied him. "Not even a little." He shook his head. "Because this." He looked at her. "This is real." Lila's expression softened, and for the first time she believed it completely. But far away in a large, quiet mansion, two people sat in silence, watching, waiting, because news had reached them. Their son was no longer struggling. He was rising, and this time without them. The call came in the middle of the afternoon. Lila was in the workshop, her hands deep inside an engine, her focus sharp as always. The steady hum of tools and low chatter of workers filled the space around her. Zane stood nearby, reviewing a document on his tablet, occasionally glancing up as if drawn by habit to where she was. Then his phone rang. He almost ignored it. Almost. Unknown number, but something made him pause. He answered. "Hello." There was silence on the other end. Then a voice he had not heard in some time. "Zane!" Everything inside him stilled. His grip tightened slightly around the phone. "Mother," he said. Lila looked up immediately. She did not hear the voice, but she saw his face, and that was enough. "You need to come home," his mother said. Her voice was controlled, but underneath it, something was breaking. Zane's chest tightened. "What happened?" Pause. Then, "It is your father." The world seemed to slow. "He is very sick." Silence. Zane's mind raced. "What kind of sickness?" he asked. Another pause. "Kidney failure." The words landed heavy, cold, final. "He needs a transplant," she added. Zane closed his eyes briefly. "And?" he asked quietly. His mother's voice dropped. "He will not survive without it." The line went silent. For a moment Zane did not speak, did not move, because suddenly everything he had left behind had found its way back. "Come home," his mother said again. This time there was no control left in her voice, only desperation. The call ended. Zane stood still, phone still in his hand, eyes unfocused. Lila moved toward him slowly. "What happened?" she asked gently. He did not respond immediately. Then, "He is dying," he said. Lila's breath caught slightly. "Your father?" He nodded. Silence fell between them, heavy, unavoidable. "What are you going to do?" she asked. That question was not simple, because the answer was not simple. Zane exhaled slowly. "I do not know." And for the first time in a long time, that was true. The journey back felt longer than it should have. The road stretched endlessly ahead, but Zane barely noticed it. His mind was elsewhere, memories, old ones. His father teaching him how to ride a bicycle. His father correcting him sharply when he made mistakes. His father standing tall, unyielding, always expecting more. Not a perfect man, but still his father. Beside him, Lila sat quietly. She had not said much since they left because she understood something. This was not a moment for words, this was a moment for choice. The gates opened slowly. The mansion stood just as it always had, untouched, unchanged. But this time it did not feel powerful, it felt fragile. Zane stepped out of the car. The air felt heavier here, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Inside, everything was quieter than usual. Staff moved softly, voices were low. And at the center of it all, his mother stood waiting. She looked different, not physically, but something in her posture had changed. Less rigid, less controlled, more human. "Zane," she said. Her voice broke slightly. He stepped forward. "How is he?" he asked. She hesitated. "Not good." That was enough. The hospital room was dim. Machines beeped steadily. And on the bed, the man who once seemed untouchable now looked small, weak, human. Zane stopped at the doorway. For a moment, he could not move because this was not the man he remembered. This was not the man who had given him ultimatums, who had stood unshaken, certain of his power. This was someone else, someone fragile. "Go," his mother whispered. Zane stepped inside slowly, each step heavier than the last. He stopped beside the bed and looked down. His father's eyes opened slowly. They met his. For a moment there was no anger, no pride, just recognition. "You came," his father said weakly. Zane nodded. "Yes." Silence followed. Then his father exhaled slowly. "I did not think you would." Zane's jaw tightened slightly. "I am still your son." Those words carried weight, more than anything else. His father's gaze shifted slightly, then back. "I was hard on you," he said. It was not an apology, not yet, but it was close. Zane did not respond, because now the past felt complicated, heavy, and unfinished. Later, the doctor spoke to them. "The situation is critical," he said. His tone was professional, measured. "He needs a kidney transplant urgently." Zane stood still. "Do you have a donor?" the doctor asked. His mother shook her head. "We have been searching," she said, "but nothing has matched." Silence. Then Zane spoke. "Test me." Both of them turned to him. "What?" his mother asked. "Test me," he repeated. Her eyes widened. "No." The word came quickly. "You just got your life back," she said. "You cannot risk it." Zane's voice remained calm. "He is my father." His mother shook her head again. "He did not treat you like one." That hit, but it did not change anything. "That does not change who I am," Zane said quietly. Silence, deep, unavoidable. Lila stepped forward slightly. She had not spoken until now, but her presence was steady, certain. "Let him choose," she said softly. Zane glanced at her. Their eyes met, and in that moment he knew. She understood, not just the situation, but him. The tests were done. Time stretched painfully. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. Until finally the doctor returned. "You are a match." Silence. His mother covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. "No," she whispered. But this time it was not refusal, it was fear. That night Zane sat alone outside the hospital. The city lights flickered in the distance. Lila joined him quietly. Neither of them spoke at first. Then, "Are you sure?" she asked. Zane nodded. "Yes." Lila studied him. "You do not have to do this." He looked at her. "I know." Pause. "But I want to." Her voice softened. "Even after everything." Zane exhaled slowly. "Especially after everything." Silence. Then he added, "I do not want to carry anger anymore." That was it. Not obligation, not guilt, freedom. Lila's eyes softened. She reached for his hand and held it. "I am here," she said. Zane squeezed her hand gently. "I know." The surgery was scheduled. The night before, the tension was unbearable. His mother barely slept. Lila stayed close. And Zane, he remained calm, not because he was not afraid, but because he had already made his decision. The morning came, bright, unforgiving. He was wheeled into the operating room, and for the first time, his mother broke completely. "Please," she whispered. He reached out slightly. "I will be fine." Then he looked at Lila and smiled. "I told you," he said softly. She nodded, but her eyes said everything she could not. The doors closed, and time stood still. The waiting room felt endless. Time moved, but not in a way anyone could measure. Lila sat still, her hands clasped tightly together in her lap, her fingers occasionally tightening without her realizing it. Across from her, Zane's mother paced slowly, her steps uneven, her composure long gone. Every few seconds her eyes drifted to the doors, closed, silent, unyielding. Hours had passed, or maybe minutes. It was impossible to tell, because when fear takes over, time stops making sense. Lila exhaled slowly, trying to steady her breathing. She was not used to this kind of waiting, this kind of helplessness. Her life had always been about action, fixing, solving, doing, but this required stillness, faith, and it terrified her. She glanced at Zane's mother. For the first time since she had known her, she did not see authority. She did not see judgment. She saw a woman, a mother, afraid of losing her son. That realization softened something in Lila, not completely, but enough. "You should sit," Lila said gently. Zane's mother stopped pacing. She looked at her, really looked at her. For a moment it felt like the first time. Then slowly she sat. Silence followed, but it was not hostile, not anymore. It was shared, heavy, but shared. The doors finally opened. Both women stood instantly. The doctor stepped out, removing his gloves. For a second, no one spoke, because the answer was written on his face. "It was successful," he said. Everything released at once. A breath, a weight, a fear. Zane's mother covered her face, tears spilling freely now. Thank you, she whispered. Lila closed her eyes briefly. Relief washed through her like a wave, but it did not end there. They are both stable, the doctor continued, but recovery will take time. Lila nodded. That is enough, she said softly. And it was. The hours that followed were quieter, less tense, but still fragile. Lila was the first to see Zane. He lay still on the hospital bed, machines surrounding him, his face pale but peaceful. For a moment, she did not move, because seeing him like this hit differently. This was not the confident man who had walked away from everything. This was not the man who had stood beside her, building a life from nothing. This was someone vulnerable, and it broke something open inside her. She wheeled closer slowly. Zane, she whispered. His eyes opened slightly. It took him a moment to focus. Then he saw her and smiled, weak but real. You are here, he murmured. Lila let out a soft breath she did not realize she was holding. Of course I am. He blinked slowly. How did it go? Lila leaned closer. It worked, she said. His expression softened completely. Good. That was his first thought. Not himself, his father. Lila swallowed slightly. You should rest, she said. Zane nodded faintly, but before his eyes closed again, he whispered, Stay. Lila did not hesitate. I am not going anywhere. Time passed. Recovery was slow, careful, but steady. Zane regained strength gradually, and so did his father. The man who once seemed untouchable now needed help to sit up, to move, to exist. And in that vulnerability, something shifted. Not just in him, but in everything around him. The first time Zane's father spoke to Lila alone, the room felt quiet in a different way. Not tense, not heavy, but uncertain. Lila wheeled in slowly. He was sitting upright now, supported by pillows, his face still weak, but his eyes clear. He watched her as she approached, not with judgment, not with dismissal, but with something else. Recognition. You stayed, he said. Lila nodded. Yes. He exhaled slowly. You did not have to. Lila tilted her head slightly. Yes, I did. He studied her. Then for the first time his voice softened. I was wrong about you. The words were simple, but they carried everything. Years of pride, of assumptions, of distance. Lila did not respond immediately because she felt it, the weight of that apology. I judged you without knowing you, he continued. His voice trembled slightly, and I almost lost my son because of it. Silence, deep. Then he looked at her fully. I am sorry. No pride, no hesitation, just truth. Lila's chest tightened slightly, because she had not expected this. Not from him, not ever. She looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded. I forgive you. And just like that, something heavy lifted. Not completely, but enough. Later, when Zane was strong enough, they sat together, all three of them, in the same room. For the first time, without conflict, without tension, without distance. Zane looked between them. You talked, he said. Lila nodded. We did. His father exhaled slowly. She is stronger than I thought, he admitted. Zane smiled slightly. I told you. His father shook his head. You did not tell me enough. They all laughed softly, and in that moment it felt real. Not forced, not fragile, just real. Time passed and they returned home, but not to the same life, because everything had changed. Not just externally, but internally. His father was different, softer, more aware. His mother, warmer, more open. And Lila, she was not just accepted, she was welcomed. One evening they all sat outside the large house, the same place where everything had once felt divided. Now it felt whole. Zane leaned back slightly, his hand resting over Lila's. You know, he said, if this had happened before, he paused, I do not think we would be here. Lila nodded. We would not. His father looked at them. No, he said quietly, you would not. A small silence followed. Then he added, but I am glad you are now. That meant everything. Later their story became something more. Not just a memory, not just a moment, but a legacy. Lila's workshop expanded into a full automotive company, training others, creating opportunities. Zane's empire grew, not from inheritance, but from effort, vision, resilience. And together they built something greater than either of them could have imagined. Not just wealth, but impact, because their story was never just about love. It was about choice, about standing firm when everything tries to break you. About building something real from nothing and proving that the greatest wealth in life is not what you inherit, but what you choose and who you choose to build it with. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.